In this episode of Studies in Shadow, Noah and I take a trip to St. Anthony, Idaho, which is home to the former Idaho State Girls Reformatory and Infirmary. The reformatory is a beautiful red brick building that occupies 5,000 square feet of land. The building itself is 3 stories, only 2 of which are actively occupied. The infirmary is a much smaller, gray brick building with a seemingly grimmer exterior than what we hear is on the inside. For the interview, Noah and I set up in the living room of the 2nd floor. Doug and Marilyn, the owners, sit across from us, and we can't help but notice the air hockey table to their right. It's covered with old newspaper articles, book excerpts, and the original blueprints for the structure. We feel privileged for the opportunity to be here, and we're both excited to hear about the rich history of the property and those who reside within, both living and dead. So this is Jack Rogers, your host, joined by my co-host Noah Bazoo.
I'm always here.
Awesome, and we are here with Doug and Marilyn in the haunted hospital is what the attraction is called, right next door.
Yep.
But what is this place? Where are we?
This was a girls' reform school. It was built in 1921. It was called part of the Idaho Technical School.
Okay, and what does that mean?
It's for little girls gone wrong.
Really?
Basically, any girls that were in the custody of the state, this was the only facility for them. And didn't matter where in the state you lived, and didn't matter if you were an orphan or a murderer, and you were in the custody of the state, this is where they put you.
My goodness.
Well, minors.
Yes.
Yeah, between
Yes.
3 and 18.
3?
Yeah.
No,
3
it was
years old?
6.
6.
6? That's still really low.
People can
As
be
far as-
bad at 6 years old?
I guess so.
I'm
No,
just
but
thinking
if their parents couldn't afford to care for them and the state took custody of them,
Gotcha.
they didn't have a foster care system
Uh-huh.
yet. So, or, their family all died in the influenza or
Right.
something, or they did something, or
Yeah.
teenage pregnancy.
Oh,
Yeah, back in
know.
the day,
Yeah, the boys, it was
if a
like,
teenager got
aw.
pregnant, they sent her away someplace. Well, this was the place.
they sent the teenage girl away or the baby away?
The teenage girl,
The girl. I mean, you couldn't allow a teenage girl to be seen in public pregnant.
Oh my goodness.
no,
And-
unmarried girls didn't do that.
And then what happened to the baby? Did they become state custody as well?
Who knows?
I don't really know.
That was before abortion was a thing, so.
Right.
We don't know what happened to the
Yeah, I
babies,
don't know. It was typical for that time period. I've never
Yeah.
gone into it.
That's something we gotta research then. Like what happened to the kids.
Or what was the protocol in the
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
20s?
That's a
Yeah.
good question.
Well,
to
it
know.
kind of, I know, like in England and stuff, there was a thing where the child was conceived in sin and it was taken away, and they either the babies could have been put into orphanages or they could have been put out for adoption or something. But I don't know that the girls actually had any options for keeping them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Socially, it wasn't a thing.
But they're probably really depended on what the family wanted, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure the family had some say in it.
Definitely.
I have no idea.
So you live here?
Yep. Yeah, this, down on the 1st floor was classrooms, and then this floor here was the dorms for the girls. And originally when this building was first built, there was one huge room on this side and one huge room on that side, and it was just bunks lined up from one end to the other.
Oh wow.
And it was just, they had everyone mixed together,
Yeah.
And in the 50s when they remodeled it, it's this configuration that is now, and they had 3 girls in each room then.
So they only had 27 here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Wow. I mean, I guess that's a lot less than before.
Well, and they had two buildings. They were both built. This one was built first, and then that
Okay.
one was built the other a year later, and they were both identical, exact same floor plans. And you can see the pictures there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we talked
The
about
blueprints on the table.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the pictures of the two buildings side by side, and anyway, so I don't know that the other building was torn down in the '60s.
Okay, I was about to
So
ask.
I don't know if that one ever got remodeled like this one did. So
Why do you think they might have torn it down?
I really don't know. The only thing I can think of is some structural flaw.
Oh, okay.
They were built, from our understanding, they were built by child labor, the boys,
Oh,
in
yeah.
that time period, which sounds kind of not nice.
Yeah.
But if you're looking
This
at
was a classroom.
Yeah.
but if you're
teaching them
looking
how to
at,
build.
Oh.
1919, 1920, that would give them life skills.
Like a trade school.
Yeah, it would be like a
exactly.
trade school, because
It
this was
was-
Idaho Technical School.
Oh,
And so
okay.
it would give them skills. And at one point, there's still quite a few buildings down the road a little ways there.
Uh-huh.
But at
And the
one
state
point,
still maintains that facility there. It's called the
Yeah.
JCC.
yeah, the
Okay.
Juvenile Correction Center down there.
Oh, right.
But the children collectively, the boys and the girls, they had blacksmithing and they had a dairy and all kinds of things. They actually supported themselves and made money for the state.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good
They
deal.
have an upholstery shop down there, and they do all kinds of things, taught all kinds of trades. And the girls that were here, they taught them how to be maids.
Oh.
And so that they would have a trade as a maid when they got out.
So kind of like home ec.
Well, basically, they taught them how to clean, and this was their classroom for cleaning. They kept this place clean.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to make a mess and say, all right, this is your training, clean it up.
No,
I'm sure
but they,
the regular
like
cleaning
this,
was enough.
Right.
with all the flooring here, it was covered at the remodel, but before that, it was like, it's all hardwood maple.
Oh,
So they
beautiful.
they got to scrub and clean those floors and the stairs and,
Yeah.
and they just, what a maid in a large house would do.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were taught some of those skills here because, you're talking the 20s. Girls
Yeah.
didn't have a lot going
Yeah.
on.
I'm glad you explained how it was made, or how the structure was, because if you would have just said, oh yeah, child labor, I'd have been like, oh man, that's brutal. So I'm glad you explained about everything else about it, because that would have been really, really sad.
Yeah.
If it was just a series of child labor.
Well, but see, and that would explain why there may have been a flaw in the other building structure.
Right.
Little boys. I'm just kidding.
Little
Trusting
boys
it's a
cleaning
guy
it.
that's building
Teenage
it.
Not-
boys,
Not putting boards in the right place.
No.
Yeah.
Forgetting a
Well,
nail or
They
two.
were supervised pretty closely.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, so I'm a builder, and this building was built pretty well, so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is the story? Where did you live before this? And then what prompted you to buy this place, this property?
Well,
It's-
we lived in Southern California,
Mm-hmm.
and we had a house that we were building. It was almost finished, up in the hills outside of Temecula.
Yeah, got a ranch in Temecula wine country area.
Yeah, and there was a fire and the house burned down.
Mm.
And so we moved into town,
Mm-hmm.
which was Hemet, as opposed to going to Temecula, because two of our daughters were married and living in Hemet.
Mhm.
And we went there and we went, wow, can't raise children here.
Yeah,
Like, there was
my car
literally
was
a
stolen
meth-
6 times, and
What?
there was 5 murders within a few blocks of us during that year that we lived in town
Oh
there.
man.
We had bought this fixer-upper, and so we decided, well, we're going to sell this place. And
There was
go somewhere
literally a
else.
meth lab next door, so.
Yeah.
Hey, I lived in a place like that.
Yeah, and it was like a nice area, but that half of that block, for some reason, was just glitchy.
Yeah.
And so our oldest son was up here at college,
Mm-hmm.
and he'd recruited his 2 brother-in-laws to come up here. So that was all the grandkids. And
So she was flying up here to see the grandkids all the time, and then she says, well, maybe we should just get a place in Rexburg. And so then every place she found, she'd show me online, the pictures and stuff and the price, and I said, no, it's too small, too much money, and she found probably half a dozen places. Every place was too small, too much money, and then she found this place, and I said, well, it's not too small. So,
It's not.
There you
In
go.
all honesty, he had no intentions of ever moving to Idaho.
Right.
So, but then he couldn't really argue too much about this. So,
And were you aware of the history and reputation of this place before you moved in?
absolutely not.
Really?
Really?
I mean, we knew that it was, it had been a girls' reform school.
Uh-huh.
But we didn't know about any of the interesting parts of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. So,
I guess the real estate agent was careful not to let you see that part of the history. Yeah.
well, I mean, we have a son who's autistic, and then at the time our daughter was not quite 13; she was still 12. And so, with the facility right down the street, we did call and talk to them. We checked out what kind of, juveniles they have there and what their policies were and, kind of how things were, so we would know
And
if
about,
it was a safe place to be
we
here.
were
Yeah.
wondering about, escapees and runaways and stuff.
Of course.
What that was like, and it's very rare, so.
It's like a jailbreak almost.
Yeah, it's like, they call it spring runoff, when the snow's down and the crops aren't up.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, almost never happens, and they did come out and tell us once we moved in that, if anyone ever left there, that they would come and go through all the buildings here to look for them.
Okay.
I was like, well, you have fun with that, because you could wander around for days
Oh, yeah.
and never find anybody.
It's a big
and
place.
They could be here. So, because we can't find each other half
And
the time.
and I think there's only been 3 times in the 6 years we've lived here that someone's run, and they just run across the back field of the canal and then go up across the field to the cemetery, and they catch them down by the river.
I was about to say, I'm assuming since you know the route, they got found.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Um,
But
No, they could see them running across the field. So,
it's very flat. There's really nowhere to go.
It's like that
Yeah.
scene in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? They're all just
Yes.
running across the open field in chains.
I'm
Yeah,
just wondering
so-
what their plan was. Like, what are you gonna go? Like, what are you gonna do?
One step at a time,
Hitchhike
man.
on a
Well,
truck or
actually,
something?
from what I understand, for some of the kids, it's the best life they've ever had, and it's almost time to go home, so they run and they get resentenced and they get to stay.
yeah, that's how they get to
Patience,
stay, is by
come
running
on.
away.
I know, isn't that sad?
That's ironic. That's some really sad irony right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess this begs the question, since you didn't know about the reputation of this place when you acquired it, when did you start to notice something here? Or some
It's
things?
one of his stories.
Yeah. Well,
Please, by all means.
we drove all day and all night to get here. We had my truck and trailer packed with all of our stuff, and so we get here, and it was Thanksgiving Day, and the realtor brought over some leftovers from Thanksgiving dinner. It was in the evening, and so we ate some Thanksgiving leftovers, and we pulled the mattresses off the trailer, threw them on the floor, and went to sleep. Right, and so I was about to go to sleep, and then I realized, I got to go turn off the lights and lock the doors. And so I go to turn off the lights and lock the doors, and I hear a woman crying, and
oh my gosh.
and so I go get a flashlight and I check on the kids, and they're all asleep, and I'm listening. It sounds like it's coming from the other room, and so I go in the next room and I don't see anybody. I listen. It must be the next room, and so I go in the next room, and I looked for 4 hours for this woman crying, and I could not find her anywhere. And finally I just said, hey, I'm sorry you're crying, but I got to get some sleep here. And so I just went to sleep, and I could still hear her crying when I was laying there going to
Oh
sleep.
my goodness. And so once
That was
you,
the first night.
so the first,
Oh
okay,
my
so did things
gosh.
rapidly start picking up? Or?
No,
Just
the next
consistent.
day, gave the place a blessing, and I mean, you can't send them away. I mean,
No.
they're spirits; they're everywhere, and
Yeah.
so I just blessed them that they would be at peace, and as far as I could tell, everyone's been peaceful since.
Yeah.
We've never felt anything like hostile or
Yeah, we haven't felt
Evil.
any hostile spirits, even though there's definite presence.
Yeah. And did you bless the house because of what happened the previous night, or because that's just I mean, I
Well,
understand
that-
that's kind of a common practice when you move into a new
I was
place.
going to do that anyway, but
Yeah.
but that kind of expedited it. You know?
Right. Let's get this done now. I would
and see,
appreciate
and
that.
Of course, she didn't say anything to anyone about it.
Uh-huh.
And
Good man.
our little brand new daughter-in-law happened to be here that week, and and she's like,
Yeah, they'd
well, should-
just gotten married before we moved up here, and they'd gone on their honeymoon, and then we moved up here, and so then they came up here on their way back to Norway, and so
Anyway, but she
was
was a new member. She's like, well, I've heard that when you move into a new place that you should bless it or something. I'm
Mhm.
like, yeah, we'll do that. And he's like,
Yeah.
great idea. Let's take care of that.
Kind of dedicate the house.
Nobody
Yeah.
even
yeah.
knew
Wow.
that had happened to him.
So, Marilyn, what was your first experience?
About a month after we moved here, yeah, because my daughter, our other daughter, had moved into an apartment downstairs with her husband, who was going to school, and her children. And he was gone. He had gone back down to California for something. And but we had 3 teenage boys, and 2 of them had a room downstairs off the foyer there, and our bedroom is off the foyer. And so they're like, I don't know, 16 and 18. And so it's like 1 o'clock in the morning,
Mhm.
and I could hear guys' voices in the foyer, and I'm like, what are they doing up? It's like 1 in the morning. So I opened the door and I went out to tell them to go to bed, and they weren't out there. And so I went, oh good, they went to bed.
Huh.
And I went back to bed. And then a little while later I could hear voices again. I'm like, what are they doing? So I went out there again, and they weren't there. And I kind of stuck my head in their room, and they were asleep. So then I went and locked my door like it made a difference. But
Right, yes. They're going to come in your room and party.
and I found this out later. I didn't say anything to any of the kids about it or my daughter, and but around the same time period, she went, or I was gone somewhere, and the kids were in school or something, and so she was coming through the foyer and going back to her room to do laundry, and she could hear voices out in the foyer, and she's like, oh, they must get out early today. She thought the boys were home. And so she went out to the foyer, and there was nobody there. And so she decided no one needed laundry, and she stayed in her apartment. But she didn't tell me, because she didn't want to scare me. And I didn't tell her, because I don't want to scare her.
That's
And
some
so-
that's some funny stuff right there.
Yeah, and so
Everybody
anyway,
knows,
but basically we were having the same experience, and I have no idea what that was about, but it happened to me a couple times and to her a couple times. And
Uh-huh.
I don't know how it came up. Family dinner or something like that.
Yeah, you just said, so I've been hearing these voices, and then, oh, hey, me too. Just this big revelation. Everybody has these stories.
Everybody knows it, but nobody wants to know it at the
'Cause
same
they-
time.
Yeah, I'd probably think I was crazy, and then I wouldn't want to talk about it.
Exactly.
I don't know how you went back. I'm still thinking about your story. Where I went back to sleep after hearing the woman cry. I'm like, I'm sorry, no.
After
I
4 hours, I was really beat. I've been,
That
I've been
makes sense.
driving for 24 hours.
Okay, so
Oh
yeah,
my goodness.
I was like, there is no way. I was like, he is like way tougher than I will ever be. Because if I heard someone crying, even if I knew who it was, like my little sister, I could not sleep because I'd be like, what's going on? What's happening? And if I couldn't find the person sleeping, you best believe I'm like, all right, I'm going to lock the door and just go to the hotel for the night, guys. You guys
Right.
can do your thing tonight.
Oh my goodness.
The horror movies have taught me that. Don't stay and wait for it. Just leave.
Yeah.
So, when people visited, did they have anything strange or like shocking happen to them, where they got really scared or freaked out?
Now the teenagers would have things happen.
Really?
Oh.
Yeah.
And Bear and Demi had some things happen also. When,
Yeah. They weren't Barrett and Demi then. They were just Barrett and
Right.
Demi.
Right.
Yeah, I met Barrett
Yeah.
when I first came to.
Demi would have been the one you bought tickets from.
And what I'm talking about is this place is also a Halloween attraction.
Oh.
Yeah, next
Yeah.
door there's a hospital that was originally built as an infirmary for the youth that were here and down the street. All the boys and girls were treated at the infirmary there. They had a doctor and a nurse on staff all the time. And but then when the 20 came through, the town lost their hospital, and so then it was open to the public, and everyone came here. And so the hospital was open to the public, and
Yeah, and I don't know how long that
Yeah.
was for, but
Yeah. And so going back to things that happened to the teenagers and to Barrett and Demi.
Yeah, and
Can
then
you
our
tell us about
youngest
that?
daughter, Lacey. Well, Demi was, we knew her from California, and she'd come up here. And she was living with us, and she was sharing a room with my daughter. And she had, like, gone into the shower or something.
Yeah.
And,
You'd probably have her tell the story, because
yeah, but I don't know the story. Some part of it's on the Ghost Adventures thing, but she ended up with a bite mark on her arm or something.
That's freaky.
Yeah, she was a little
What?
freaked out. And of course, at this point, they've been married 2 years, she might have told us. But she didn't say anything to me. And then she said something to our daughter. And for some reason, she didn't say anything to us.
I think her sister was here at the time or something.
No,
Her
Haley
sister pointed
never
out.
came up here until the reception. But anyway, yeah. No, that was a different story from Demi. But anyway, yeah. And then I can't remember, a couple things happened with our youngest. But, and I have no idea if it was this thing of like everybody thinking, well, maybe I'm just being weird or crazy. And so nobody's really communicating very much, and stuff. And so.
But everyone's had experiences,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing he was talking about when Bear and Demi got married and they came up here to do a reception, Demi's sister came up. And it was the first time she'd been here. This was 2 years ago. And so Barrett took him on a tour on the 3rd floor upstairs there. And that area had been closed off. You have not been on a home tour here?
I have not.
Oh, dear. You should do that. Or not. But
I would love
anyway,
that.
so when they did the remodel in 1955, they cut off the stairs to the 3rd floor and walled it closed.
Oh.
This was closed for like 50 years or something.
Yeah.
Until
It's not creepy.
And the thing is that the story that I hear, why it was closed is because no one would go up there, because everyone said it was haunted up there on the 3rd floor, and because a couple of incidences happened. One was supposedly a girl had jumped out of the window up there, and everyone said there was no reason for her to do that. She was happy and whatever. And then one of the matrons got pushed down the stairs, but no one was there. And so
Well, this is in modern times. This isn't.
this was before 1955.
Okay.
Before the place was remodeled. So when they did the remodel, they walled off the 3rd floor, and that closet behind you, you can see where the stairs were cut off, and it was walled off, and I mean, seriously, there's just a hole cut in the wall now to go to the 3rd floor.
Okay.
Yeah. And we don't actually know why it was done. But back to Barrett and Demi, took Demi's sister upstairs to show her up there because it's the creepy place in the house. Anyway, and they were walking around up there, and then suddenly I could hear him running down the stairs, all the way down all the stairs, both flights. I was like, wow, that didn't last very long. And Barrett's a very skeptical, practical person.
Those are my favorite kind of stories.
Yeah, and he's like, Mom? He's like, there were footprints up there. I'm like, what, in the dust? He's like, no, wet.
Oh, no.
Just 2 wet feet in the middle of a room, nothing walking to it, nothing walking away from it. And he's like, you know me. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, there's something wrong. He's like,
Yeah.
He's
Time
like,
to
I just
leave.
need to take the girls downstairs. Anyway, so
Just gotta chill.
because I was nice. I said, did you take a picture? He's like, Mom. Anyway.
I'm going to run down the stairs, but I'm going to take a picture real fast.
He's like, no, that's why you said I needed to get the girls down. I was like,
Right.
That's reasonable.
Good guy. Good guy.
So, yeah.
That is
But,
super freaky.
Yeah.
yeah, and so that was just like kind of weird. So.
I'm just imagining what I would do in that situation. I'd look at it and just be like, close the door and be like, all right, girls, let's go to a different room really quick.
Yeah.
Well, there's no door, it's just a hole in the wall.
That's even more
Right.
So you
scary.
have to run down the stairs till there isn't any more, and then, jump through the hole.
Oh, I thought you say crawl.
Oh, I see.
was like, no.
Very nice. And so, what kind of do you think resides here?
I think it's just
girls.
just mostly people that had been here in life, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yeah.
we have a news story that, we did not experience this. But about a month ago, a lady came out, and her mother had been a ward of the state here. Or whatever
Interesting.
the word would be. And her mother passed away back in April. And she was in the area, and so she'd heard about it all her life, and so she wanted to come and see. And so I let her come out, and, we visited, and I took her around. And she showed me the actual admission papers, or whatever they're called, when her mother was processed here.
The sentencing
And stuff.
papers.
Yeah, whatever it's called, yeah.
Sentencing papers.
Yeah.
Yeah, Anyway, and in fact, she's going to make a copy of them and send them back to me. She's like, no one in my family's interested in them. But her mother came in 1971, she was 14 years old. And a story that her mother had told her, which I think is odd, that you would tell your child this, but, apparently her mother had some issues. And I've always felt really bad about the girls here, because there's these solitary confinement rooms and stuff. And I'm like,
Yeah,
poor little
I
girls.
heard about that.
Yeah, so...
Yeah, they're down that hall.
Yeah, you can go look at those. But she said that while her mother was here, so somewhere between the ages of 14 and 17, she there was a matron that a bunch of the girls didn't like. And they lured her into the shower and beat her in the head with an iron.
Oh,
Till they thought she was dead.
this was in the 70s.
Early 70s.
Huh.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking, well, solitary confinement could be a good thing.
Yeah.
That would be a very different ending to the Matilda movie.
Oh.
Yeah, so you know what I'm saying? Because, you always assume that they were treated poorly, or it was they're little victims, and it
Poor
was
little
a sad
things.
situation. And then after that, I was like, well, and this was just a few weeks ago, and I was like, wow, that is a completely different take on things.
They are capable of some things.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
maybe,
some of
maybe
them,
they were
I
here
guess,
for a
needed
reason.
to be here.
Now, was she a part of the iron?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, who would tell their child that? But obviously the woman had
Yeah.
issues. But,
I was an accessory for murder.
Yeah. And so,
Attempted.
excuse me, so this lady had tried to do research
Uh-huh.
and see if she could find anything in the newspaper, but because this is my speculation, that, they would have their own security here, they wouldn't have called the police,
Uh-huh.
it wouldn't have been picked up by the papers or anything. So there may not be any record other than the documentation about this building, which is kept private down the street.
Huh.
So I have no way of verifying it, if that
But-
actually happened or not.
That is a very interesting story.
Well, it was interesting because probably the week before is when the Ghost Hunts USA was here. They come out.
They host events.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
they guide you through a paranormal experience.
I would love that.
Yeah, they charge $149 for it.
I would not love that. I redact
But
that
they-
statement.
Yes, and they come from about 8:30 at night until 4:30 in the morning.
Okay.
But they're not sleeping, and they go through this building and the other building. They kind of go back and forth a lot,
But
and
they have all the equipment and everything.
they have all
Right.
this
The
equipment
team
to
goes.
record things, and
Mm-hmm.
and their people are mediums or psychics or a combination. I don't know what the difference is. Sorry, and they really cool people, but they help you interpret things that you're feeling or hearing, or point things out, like
Ghost
you feel that
therapist.
cold spot or whatever.
That's the air vent. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It's not a ghost
So-
yet.
A week or so they had come, before this woman had come, and it was the first time they'd actually done an event here. And she, the lady that was hosting it
Uh-huh.
that night, we visited during the day while she was here. And she was telling me, and most people are like really focused on those solitary confinement rooms,
Yeah.
and they're very
Not of
interested
negative
in those
energy.
and want to check those out. But she kept being drawn to the shower. And so when she told me that she could see blood running down the drain,
Oh.
and she sensed it was from a head wound. This woman hasn't been to my house to tell me the story yet.
Right, and so it was a
Oh.
week later that she heard the story.
What?
Yeah, and so I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
cool beans. I love it.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's always exciting.
Oh my goodness.
So,
Like,
anyway.
man, we're gonna have to.
And so that's the first person that's ever come up with a story or something about the shower.
Yeah.
So,
So when I was here a few weeks back, I went through the haunted hospital. Loved it, by the way. It was fantastic. I've worked in a haunted place, so I look at things very differently than other people who've worked it.
For you.
It probably ruins everything for who I'm with too, because I always interact with the characters. They pop out. I'm like, that was a good one. Or if somebody's standing still, I'm like, I can tell you're a real person. I know this trick. And then I walk past them, start hearing the shuffling. I'm like, gotcha. I know that's you. But they got me really good a couple times, especially there's flashing lights at one point. Somebody pops out. That got me really good.
That was Dr. Neldergast.
Very nice.
The little girl in the basement, I remember that. She got me really bad. I thought I was going to be, I don't know.
Yeah, everyone says she's really good.
Yeah, I was just walking. I was just like, okay, it's not that bad. It was scary, but I was like, okay, I'm not like at the point I'm gonna like wet myself. And then we're like walking to the stairs, and I turn, and this girl like does her thing, and I'm like, okay, hold on. And I'm sorry, I feel my heart turn. I'm like, just made me really uncomfortable.
My eyes kind of never really adjusted, especially like the flashing lights. It's like kept like getting lost and like going the wrong way. I probably made them mad because I'm like going one way and like not that way. I'm so sorry. Can you please point me in the right way to go?
Dear spirits.
A bulb had burnt out, so it's not supposed to be quite that dark down there.
Oh really?
Yeah. So, but there's not often time for them to get messages out.
Right. Yeah.
We try to keep track of everything, but it's hard.
So speaking of little girls in the basement, I remember when I was waiting at the door and you were waiting to let me and my date in, you were telling us a story and you brought up Sarah.
The children, the cast members that have worked over there decided that she should have a name.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, so she was discovered, whatever you want to call it, the first year that we worked here. And she's in a particular location. And I don't usually tell people going in what she looks like or where, so that if they think they've had an experience, they can tell me, and then I know.
Confirm.
I can confirm or not confirm it. Like, here's, okay, sweetheart, you know. Anyway, but, yeah.
Continue.
Oh, sorry. So, yeah, so our first year we had, all the kids were volunteers. We had no idea what we were doing at all. I've never been to a haunted thing in my life. Still haven't. Don't like them. So, we're just kind of winging it with, you know, whatever my daughter was a freshman that year. She was a cheerleader. All her friends were cheerleaders, and they all thought it'd be a kick. So they volunteered. And they made up all of these creepy things to do, and they're really good at being creepy. And so, you know, so we put this boy in there so they'd have someone to flirt with. And
That's a great reason. Good planning, yeah.
well, you know.
Help a guy out.
Yeah, so I think they picked him. I don't know if they picked him or not. But anyway, so, yeah, he was a few years older than them. But anyway, and we were doing well until, like, literally he came flying out the door in tears. And he didn't care. I mean, his whole purpose in being there was to flirt with them. Mm-hmm. And he didn't care.
That he was crying in front of all these girls.
Yeah, and once again, Barrett was like, okay, Mom, I'm a little concerned because he's like 16 and he doesn't even care if he's crying in front of everybody. He's like, that's not normal for a boy his age.
Yeah.
You know, Barrett was 18. So, you know, he's like, I would die before I would cry in front of a girl. So, what's wrong with this kid? Anyway, so he swears he saw a little girl in his area of the building that he's assigned to, and so that was just kind of an ongoing thing the first year, where they would, you know,
and
someone
that
would
freaked
think,
out a lot of the staff, and we lost a lot of our staff that first
well,
year.
we had to close 3 different times and send people in line home.
3 different times.
Yeah.
Yes.
She kept appearing.
Yes. And then of course, you know, if he's upset, he's the big brave guy. So the girls are just dying, and so we had to keep repositioning the girls because they wouldn't be alone anywhere. We'd have adults in the back of the room. It's the only reason they would go back inside there at all and stuff. And so, but I kind of got thinking maybe the kid was a little high strung. I didn't know him. Mm-hmm. You know, we were new here. But then I was putting out flyers at the gas station, and this lady said, "Oh, I went there. That's pretty creepy." And I said, "Why do you say that?" And she told me that, you know, she'd been in this same area of the hospital, and she said she felt something tugging on her jacket, and she looked down, and there was a little girl there.
Oh, And you're not supposed to, as a worker, you're not supposed to touch the people in the maze or the place. I worked in a maze.
Yeah.
I would grab my friends and drag them in because they didn't know it was me.
Right. You must have been loads of fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, so she described the same location and the same description that this boy had been telling me, and I was like, okay, this is stupid. Because it's like, okay, playing this is one thing, having someone actually in there.
This is some random person that doesn't know what's going on.
No connection. Yeah.
Yeah,
Other than
yeah.
just went
she didn't know
through,
who I was or anything. We were still new here, and so yeah. And then I've had people, other people just make comments to me about things, and go out the
Well,
chicken exit because of things.
And the people that lived in there, when was that? The 80s or 90s?
Yeah, I have a friend. I told you about a special needs son. Well, we all went on a field trip, and the moms all got to come, and so she was like, "Oh, I used to live over in that hospital." And so
After the hospital was abandoned, they lived in there as a home.
See, I can understand living here because it's a beautiful red brick building.
Yeah.
Living in a small, gray.
it's classic Art Deco. It's gorgeous.
Oh, I saw some of the art. It was dark,
Yeah,
but I could tell, and I was like, "That's
I
beautiful."
would love to be able to restore it, but her father worked down the street at the JCC, and so they let them rent the building, and she lived there as a child. And her older sister locked her in a cupboard one time, and she couldn't get out.
That's not very nice.
Well, the doctor opened it for her and helped her get out.
And
The
I'm
doctor
assuming
worked
there
there.
was no doctor in the building?
No, this
No,
was
it was their house.
abandoned at the time.
And there was
Right.
a
Wait,
little
hold
girl.
on. What? Hold on. I just missed that for a second. She
No,
said
it
the
was-
doctor let her out, and I was just like, okay,
Yeah,
that's
she
nice.
said there was a doctor, and
after his
and I visited with her mother. I've talked to her mother a few times, and her mother said that the two little girls would always say, "Well, the doctor said we need to eat more vegetables," and she's like, "I didn't take you to the doctor." She never knew what the heck they were talking
Thought
about.
it was like an imaginary friend almost.
Yeah, and so she would just be like, "Whatever," and then they would play with this little girl all the time.
Oh my gosh.
And this actually may be tied to the whole thing with Sarah. What was weird was the first time I talked to her, she told me the child's name. And she's never been able to remember it again. And I didn't take special note of it at the time. But,
She said it was Sarah.
no, she did not say it was Sarah. Teresa made that up. But she described some things that they would play with to me, and one of them was a blue stuffed rabbit. Well, Magnum, our son, had brought a rabbit out of a room there that the children weren't, that we don't use because there's an asbestos issue with it or something, and so it's locked.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, it's not locked; it's closed. So he had gone in there, and so she was describing to me this back room that they used to play in all the time, and that when she moved, she left some things that were this little girl's favorite toys that they shared with her. One of them was the blue stuffed rabbit, and then something else. Well, and it was not long after Magnum had brought the blue stuffed rabbit out that they started seeing her over there. I told them, put that rabbit back.
Kind of kicking up the dust sort of thing.
Yeah, but I didn't know any of the stories about it because this was like a year or more later before I talked to this woman, and I was like, "What's that darn rabbit?" But yeah. Anyway, so after they moved, she asked her mom if she could play with this little girl. Could she come over and play? And her mom's like, "Who are you talking about?" She's like, "From the old house, the little girl, we played with her all the time." And she's like,
Ooh.
"There was no little girl."
Classic horror story.
Yeah, but they played with her all the time.
Yeah.
And they saw the doctor, and he would talk to them and stuff. He wasn't hostile toward them or anything.
Okay.
But,
I mean, he
I
helped
was
her out of a
like-
cupboard.
yeah.
I was like-
No, none of our cast members have ever said anything about a doctor,
Okay.
just about the little girl.
Now there was also, we have an apartment downstairs that we rented to some people, and they had some little kids. And
Oh my gosh, I totally forgot that.
yeah.
They had a little girl that was 3 and a little boy that was 5. And I would tell them to play on the east lawn. There was some playground stuff over there for them, but not to play over by the hospital. And so one day the mom couldn't find them and went and found them, and they were playing over behind the hospital. And she asked the little girl, she's like, "What are you doing over here?" And she's like, "I'm just playing with the dead ones."
No.
Yeah, she was 3. I mean,
No.
she was 3.
You can't
And
even
her
like
mom said,
comprehend death at
"What?"
3.
And she's like, "You know, the little girls from this place," referring to the hospital.
Children have a
Yes, and so
remarkable connection.
The mom was very kind and shared that story with me, and I'm like, I don't want to know. But yeah, she's
Thank
like,
you for sharing.
Yeah, she's just like, I'm just playing with the dead ones.
See, that sentence in itself is,
That's a movie line.
it's very sinister,
Yeah.
especially because it's coming from a child. Like if you've seen Poltergeist, there's the little girl in front of the static TV,
Yeah, I love
the
that
famous
movie.
line, "They're here."
Yeah,
It's
you
like,
know,
it's a
I-
child, but that makes it worse.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's
I
Sixth
actually
Sense.
asked to go and see that movie because I thought it was an alien thing. Didn't understand the word poltergeist.
Oh, okay.
Apparently, he thought I did and thought that's not your kind of movie, but he took me.
In German, it's
Yeah,
noisy ghost.
Oh,
We
I
did an
love it.
episode with
makes
that kind of
sense.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, so
His
no,
Geist
we,
is ghost, huh?
Yeah.
no, we loved the movie. I never finished it. I don't like that kind of stuff.
Me
I
neither.
just walked out. So, yeah, it was like, oh, you didn't know what that meant. Okay, I wondered why.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. So yeah, this little tiny 3-year-old.
I'm playing with the dead ones.
Just thinking of the Sixth Sense. Like I see dead people.
I see dead people.
I'm just kind of like
Yeah.
Bruce Willis.
So when I was doing research before I came here, because it would have been foolish to come in knowing nothing, I came across an article that described people smelling sulfur. Is this something that you've heard or that you can confirm?
I have smelled cigarette smoke,
Okay.
and the previous owner came to visit the first summer, and she said, "Have you met our ghost yet?" And I was like, "No." And
Oh.
she said,
Which one? Just kidding.
anyway, and she said, "Well, you don't smoke, do you?" And I said, "No." And she's like, "But you smell cigarette smoke."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "Yeah." And she's like, "Well, that would be him." I was like, "That's nice."
Yeah.
Anyway, so one
the
day,
matches are to light the cigarettes.
Right.
yeah. So I've never smelled sulfur, but I have smelled cigarette smoke.
Yeah, because I
I'd be
read that
worried
and
about sulfur.
I was very concerned
Yeah, I'd be worried.
because sulfur, I don't know if you know, but sulfur is kind of a classic telltale sign of the demonic.
Yeah, we don't have or do anything with that.
Yeah, and so I had to ask. I read that and I said, I talked to her a few weeks ago at the hospital, and she said they blessed the place. I can't imagine there being a demonic presence. So I just wanted to run that by you. I'd be like, is this true?
Yeah.
People
So
just
we
don't
haven't
know.
had that experience. In fact,
I don't know anything about demons or anything
Yeah.
like that. So
Good
I
for
couldn't
you.
tell
Don't listen to our 5th episode. Don't do it.
I have been at actually 4th episode.
Is there a 4th?
Yeah, I've had scary experiences when I was very young, living in Hawaii because it's a very spiritualistic place. So ever since I was very young,
Yes.
I was very afraid of it, and then that fear turned into curiosity, and that turned into fascination. So I've studied a bunch of stuff. So I read that, and I was like, I've read this a bunch of places. So I wonder if they know.
yeah. Well, actually,
no.
I just said I don't like cigarettes, and then I just would smell aftershave.
I'd rather smell aftershave than cigarettes.
Bad, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe people just don't know the
And
difference between
like,
aftershave.
do you remember that day in the kitchen? I'm like, okay, you have to smell that. It's right here. And he walked
He was probably
over-
like, "You're in my face."
well, but Doug walked over and he's like, he couldn't smell it at all, and then I couldn't smell
The cigarette smoke?
the aftershave.
The aftershave. Gotcha.
He probably walked away because you were in his
He's
space.
just kind of like,
I don't
excuse
know.
you. Kind of
Hold
back
on.
Off there. I'm a married man.
I know it smells nice, but
We got a modest ghost here.
so have any spirits or presences attached themselves to anyone, or are there any like frequent visitors? I mean, you mentioned the cigarette smoke and aftershave, gentlemen, but there's no constant kind of regulars, I
Magnum
guess you could say.
Says, and he's very, very consistent in the story,
Mm-hmm.
but he had never mentioned it to us until just before the Ghost Adventure guys came.
Okay.
But he said that there's a girl that lives under his bed, and she tells him stories. at night.
No, that's creepy, but
Yes.
sweet,
Are
I
Are they bad
suppose.
stories or are they good stories?
He didn't seem to be bothered or upset by him.
Okay, I was just kind
But
of
Magnum's
Just under the bed
autistic.
thing is
Yeah.
Magnum is the autistic.
Yes, and
Child,
so he said that, and he's been very, very consistent in how he tells that story. He says it the same way every time, and that she protects him from the mean ones that come from the other building
The dead ones.
that bother him when he's out mowing the
They're all
lawn or
dead.
trying to work.
Yes.
So
Just the same dead ones the girl was talking
Wait,
about.
so she protects him from the
He's-
ones from the infirmary?
Yes.
So are the this is sound really stupid. So are like the ones in the infirmary like more hostile? Because it sounds like Sarah wasn't a hostile one, but there
She
are.
wasn't, and we haven't noticed any hostile ones. But apparently,
We haven't.
this ghost that Magnum's talking about doesn't like some of the ones that are over there.
Or something. But
Oh,
Magnum
drama.
says that they'll yell at him or bother him or something when he's out mowing the yard or doing things out there. So
That's
I don't know
rude.
that they're. I don't know if he sees them. He says there's a little boy and a little girl from the other building that, will bother him. And she makes them go away or tells them to go away or not to bother him.
That's
or
very
something
nice of
like
her.
It's just playground attitude, honestly. It really is. It's like a
Well,
kid's
and it
playground.
probably is. That's about Magnum's
Yeah.
speed.
Is does this ghost, has he given this ghost a name? This young woman? Oh,
No.
because that would be
Now, the Ghost Adventure guys assume it's Hope, who is a girl that was 14 and killed herself here.
okay.
And so, but we don't know that at all.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we heard about this girl hanging herself from the transom,
And where is the transom?
No
The
longer
transom is before this was remodeled.
Okay.
All the doors had transoms, which is a window above the door.
Right.
Oh.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you can look
Gotcha.
something through a window
Yes.
and a
Yeah.
door.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but
That's
we had
sad.
not actually
But that was
heard that
before the
story
remodel in the
before.
50s.
Before the
No,
Ghost
we've
Adventures
heard about
thing?
somebody committed suicide by throwing themselves out the third floor window.
Okay.
The Ghost Adventure guys never found documentation of that. They did find this suicide hanging in
Okay.
the transom.
And that was my next question. I said, you guys had Ghost Adventures here. I watched that show a lot growing up, and then once it was off of Netflix like 4 or 5 years ago, I stopped. But what was that experience like? Because I've never actually talked to somebody whose property they've been to. What was
I
that
avoided
experience? You didn't like them?
Well, no, they were. I never met Zach or whatever his name is.
Bagans, Zach Bagans.
Okay, good. I was going to say Baggins, but I figured that was a different story. So I figured I had that wrong. I met Corey Lyons and, their PR guy Griff and stuff like that. Very kind, very gracious, very nice people, some of the photographers, and stuff like that. But I just kind of didn't want to be in an episode, so I pretty much stayed away from them.
Oh.
So
Yeah, one of the guys got locked in one of the solitary confinement rooms.
Oh, no.
And they had their lock-in thing that they do.
Yes, yeah.
And so they had sent us away to the Marriott, for the night.
How
and,
kind.
And anyway, and so they couldn't get him out of the room.
Oh no.
So
Until morning?
yeah.
Well, the thing is that you turn the knob and it's locked, but there's no thingy on it.
There's no strike that comes out, and so all I have to do is push the door
If you-
open.
The door fits
But because
really
the door
tight.
sticks, if you push on it lightly and turn the knob, you think it's locked.
So they thought it was locked, but they could have
I-
gotten out the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh, that's priceless. Oh my gosh.
I have to tell you, a couple times a year, I'll go up there and I'll go, oh, dang it, who locked this door? Where are the keys? And then I remember, no, push on it. But sometimes I don't remember, and I live here. So, you can't really fault them. But, because there's no doorknobs on the inside.
Right,
You
'cause it's
cannot-
solitary.
You cannot pry that door open from the inside.
Oh my goodness.
Oh.
Magnum got locked in it once.
No.
It was a horrible thing, but he was actually fine. But,
Really?
Well, we'd lived here a month or so, and he just wanted to go outside. You were from California, used to being outside.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't care, go outside. I mean, there's snow, for crying out loud. So he went outside and he found a key, like in the garden shed or something. So he's going around trying this key on things. And so he'd come back in, and I didn't know. He'd come back in the house. And this floor was kind of sealed off. This second floor was actually kind of sealed off by the previous owner, trying to retain the heat downstairs. And so he'd come up through the little trap door that was there, and he was going around trying these key places, and he went into a solitary room and shut the door.
Did the key work for the solitary room?
No, because there's no doorknob.
Got it.
He just closed the door and realized, oh, there's no place to put a key there.
Oh no.
No one lived up here, and no one ever came up here, ever.
Crud.
And so I'd been packing up Christmas stuff, and most stuff we had been sending to the basement, but I told Doug, I said, oh, there's that cupboard upstairs. It's got all those little cubbies in it. It'd be perfect for holiday things. Could you put this box up there?
Mm-hmm.
And so he came up, and he thought he heard something.
I
but
go
he's-
through the trap door and I get, the box put away, and then I go back downstairs, and then, and I heard this knocking as I was going back downstairs, and I thought, I didn't think anything of it, and then I go, I better go find out what that knocking is.
Right.
And so I went back
Ghost?
upstairs, and I'm looking around, and I hear some knocking again.
Mm-hmm.
I walk down the hall and hear some knocking, and then I open the door. There's Magnum.
Were you startled? Like, there's actually someone here.
He says, well, this key doesn't fit, and he left.
That's a great story.
Yeah. And
Oh
so,
my
I mean,
gosh.
I would be traumatized to this day. He had to have been in there at least an hour.
I wonder if his friend came in and talked to him.
I know, he never said anything about it,
This key
but-
doesn't work.
Yeah, this key
Once
doesn't
again,
work.
he's braver than me because if I'd have heard knocking, I'd have been like, we're gonna lock this door really quick.
Well,
Pull
and
the
the
latch
thing
and
is
don't open
about
it
the
again.
time I was like thinking, he's been outside a really long time. I'm gonna have to go get him. He's got to be getting cold. But he'd actually come back through different doors, But it took me about a month to realize if I want to find someone to call them on their phone because we
Yeah.
were up
Right.
and down and in and
Yeah,
out,
you-
and never find
There's
each other.
no PA or intercom system here.
Yeah, it's
you
like
know,
the Winchester Mystery House.
Yeah.
Kind of
Oh, yeah,
really
yeah,
big.
Yeah.
Yeah, and with holes cut in the walls,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like if you don't want to be found here, you could absolutely hide.
Oh yeah,
So-
and there's like secret tunnels between the floors and stuff.
Really?
Some of the walls.
It
and
sounds like the
stuff.
St. Louis City Museum. I had something so random. But
Yeah.
It just sounds like something from home.
So
Well, I don't have any more questions. Noah, is there anything you're curious about?
There are some questions, but I don't think they're appropriate to ask. Not like inappropriate questions, but like.
now we're all curious.
This is like a random question. Do you like living here?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it has weird little moments,
Mhm.
and like people ask me about it, but I'm like, previously I would have said I don't even believe in that stuff.
Uh-huh.
Turns out it doesn't keep it from happening.
Yeah.
That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
But this has always felt like home. I really felt like we were meant to come here. I've always just said home. You can count on one hand the number of times I've said back home, meaning California.
Right.
Which, I mean, that's where we both lived all of our lives, and we're really old. So, long time. But this, as soon as we came here, it's always felt like home. I love the town. I love the people. And I really like this house. I would like to... I didn't want
there's
to be
some great
known
history to
as
this
the-
place.
Definitely. It's very
Yeah,
rich.
didn't
Yeah,
want to be
I mean,
known
not
as,
all of it's
you live
bad,
in
you
that
know.
creepy house.
Yeah.
Not where I was going when I moved here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just a little jealous of you because, this is kind of sound weird, but you have experiences that are not really, really aggressive or hostile with spirits and stuff like that. I've had experiences in the past. Jack knows about some of these experiences. None of mine were good, and most of them were on my mission, on reservations. And if you know anything about reservations, they're very,
Where'd you
very
go?
Montana. And so there's tons of Indian reservations up there. I spent a good 6 months on one of them. And I've taken Jack to a spot where things happen. So I'm kind of jealous. I'm just kind of I don't know. It's just interesting to hear your story and things like that.
That
because-
things are basically peaceful here.
Yeah. Because
yeah,
I don't
it's
doubt
peaceful
it.
in spite of the crowd.
The crowd.
In spite of what you said, whether, not to bring it back up, but the suicide, whether it was from hanging from a door or falling out the window, when I think of things like that, I think of, obviously, it's just the Hollywood mentality that I have where it's it's going to be bad and evil then.
A door's going to slam during the interview.
Yeah, but it's nothing. It's fine.
Yeah,
And I'm
well,
just-
there was a lady who went on the home tour and was up on the 3rd floor Saturday night.
This last Saturday?
Yeah, and I had come over here, I don't know, get something, and found her on the front steps just crying her head off. And I'm like, are you okay? Did you fall? Did you get hurt? And she's like, no. And then finally, she calmed down enough to tell me that she just, she'd gone upstairs and she had to leave the tour.
From
Because-
the third floor.
Yeah, there's a place where you can read some writing on the wall that was written by one of the girls. And I guess it was her mother that was reading it or something, and then she felt something brush against her ankle, and she looked down and she saw something running away. And then at the end of, I couldn't really figure out where she was talking about, but at the end of must have been one of the dormers or something, she thought she saw a girl, like crouched down, but then she saw something large and dark behind her. And so she wanted to leave. And I said, well, I'm very sorry because we never have dark experiences here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
You were one of the unlucky ones, I'm sorry to say.
yeah.
Yeah,
so,
but there's all kinds of stories written on the walls up on the third floor.
well, not really stories,
And-
but just
Just you know,
names
they
came,
say, you know, when
this
they
date,
came
left that
here,
day,
and
came back
you know,
that day.
these dates, and you know,
I can't believe you guys haven't been upstairs.
I just found out about this place just a few weeks ago,
No,
and then I
mean,
came
there's
to
been
the.
so many people upstairs on the third floor that we just assumed that you guys would know about
No,
the third
yeah.
floor.
Oh,
I
no,
mean,
my cute little daughter and her
It's-
friends would put a tent up there and take a laptop, and the scariest movie that they were allowed to watch, well,
What?
okay,
Nice.
things that weren't
That's
rated
my
R,
kind of
put
thing.
it that
No,
way.
I'm just
I
thinking
don't
of
know
like,
what they
what?
watched.
Why would you do this?
Because
They
it's
wanted
fun.
to see if they could find a movie that was scarier than being up there.
the answer is no.
That's
No.
brilliant.
Yeah.
I know, really clever little children.
What?
Anyway, so yeah,
the
they would
movie
usually,
was a good distraction from just the.
no,
just
they
the
would
third
usually
floor.
come downstairs to finish the movie.
Yeah.
So
I would.
they
be-
would also take. This was before any of them when they were younger and they didn't have a laptop. They take my whole TV and computer over there
Oh.
to watch a movie, or a DVD player over into the hospital to watch movies, and try to terrify themselves.
My goodness.
Wow.
Wow.
No thanks.
Yeah.
We should do like a double date and come here and do the tour.
Well, thank you so much for this interview. It's going to be a fantastic episode. It's going to be our Halloween special. So we'll send it to you as soon as it's done. You won't even have to wait for it to come out, because it was very nice of you to let us into your home and to tell us all about it. So thank you very much.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
you guys.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Awesome.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening to this special episode of Studies in Shadow. Not only is this our Halloween special, but it's officially the end of Season 1, and we've had a blast making this show, and hopefully you guys have enjoyed it as much as we've loved making it. We feel this is an appropriate time to close Season 1 for the show, as there are some pretty exciting changes coming in the near future. You can expect a break from the show for a few weeks or so, but don't worry, we'll be back soon. And for the last time this season, you can find Studies in Shadow wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Username Studies in Shadow. Visit our website, studiesinShadow.com. For all inquiries, you can send a message at studiesinShadow@gmail.com. Music composed and produced by Jack Rogers and Matthew Gonzalez. We thank you for listening to Studies in Shadow. Stay safe, and we'll see you soon.